Hey everybody, welcome to No Way Jose, starring the Boston Mass Jose Raymond, brought to you in part by Gym Hub.
Gym Hub, baby.
Gym Hub, the greatest gym in the city of Boston, which happens to be the greatest city in the world. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
How you doing, Jose?
I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm great. Doing great.
So this is not a gloom and doom talk. We're going to try to help people today as much as we can. A lot of discussions about how to do bodybuilding safer, because I don't think safely is an appropriate term unless we're talking about natural bodybuilding. You want to be safe, stay natty, guys and girls. That should go without saying. Have you heard that sentiment echoed? People are saying, wow, and all these natural bodybuilders aren't dying. I'm like, duh, obviously.
Well, they are. Everyone dies.
Well,
eventually.
Yeah, it's just a matter of when, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I caught like 2 minutes of the Fuad thing where they were talking about harm reduction and living longer. And Fuad says, maybe instead of dying at 45, we can die at 55 or 60. And I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be 53 in September. I don't want to just live another 2 years and a couple months. No, that's not. I would like to. Well, I mean, what age would you like to live to if you could choose?
Man, until I can no longer take care of myself, whatever that may be.
Yeah, when you're
there's no number. I'm facing mortality every day. My father's in a nursing home. He was just diagnosed with he's got 6 spots of brain cancer on his head. He's got lung cancer. My mom just had a bout with breast cancer. My paternal, my birth father passed away 3 years ago. The older we get, the more people are going to go. It is what it is. And I watched Seth Feroce, and he made great points, man. Like bodybuilding, the reason we love it is it's extreme. It's crazy. It is for people who just ain't right and who are very extreme people at one point in their life or another. It can never be 100% safe any more than driving a motorcycle is 100% safe. You can put a helmet on, you can drive a little slower, you can, pay attention, take safety courses, but inevitably, if someone doesn't see you and swipes into your lane, you're done. Yeah. And bodybuilding's the same. You can take precautions, you can do all the health screenings and the blood work and try to limit the intake of PEDs. You can train safer. You can get all the sleep, do everything you can. And when it's your time, you're going to go. There is no safe way to do anything. Yeah. There's no 100% safe way, I should say.
Right.
And bodybuilding's no different. Yeah. That be.
Go ahead. No, he froze on me. Was he frozen? I don't know what he was going to tell me. Oh, you froze there. So the last thing you said.
I said, that being said, there are some things you can do to not be an idiot.
Yes.
Okay. All these young kids, people that I'm hearing about, I had a guy come to me once, and he's not a bodybuilder. He's like, I'm thinking of doing a show. I heard to reach out to you and, that you could help me get ready. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, I'm on, 1,500 tests and 1,000 tren and, 10 Anadrol a day. What? I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Where did you hear to do that? Well, I don't know. I just, and that's a regular occurrence. That's not just once. That is a regular thing. Yeah. That everyone thinks that all the pros do all this stuff, so I got to do it to look like a pro.
Right.
And it's bullshit. It is crazy, and I think part of the problem, honest to God, is when you look back at the 70s and the 80s, there was no such thing as counterfeit, underground labs. They were getting it from real sources. So all they needed, when Dorian said he took 76 milligrams of parabolin, right, 2 or 3 times a week, everyone's like, bullshit. Well, that's because power bowling doesn't exist anymore. And now it's all a bathtub trend. And, half of it's garbage and you don't know what's real. And people just to make sure I'm getting enough, I'll take 800 of it,
Yeah.
Where back in the day, all you needed was 500 or 700, 750 of test, a couple parallel bowling, deca once a week, and that's all they needed. Some D-ball. Of course, there was crazy guys that were overdoing it because they thought if they did more than Arnold, they would look bigger than Arnold, But for the most part, you didn't have to do all that stuff. And nowadays, people are just overdoing stuff. And here's an example, and I was guilty of it for a short period of time. You get these Chinese GH.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, there's probably only 5 IUs in the bottle. So, just take the whole bottle.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the hell it was. I was just listening to someone that said it,
Right.
And, and then that's when I was like, you know what? I ain't doing this. This is crazy. And I would only use pharmaceutical grade things moving forward from that point because it's just stupid.
Yeah.
At least I knew like this doesn't make sense. Well, what if it is 10? I'm going to take 10 IUs every day. Give me a break.
Which I've heard from actually talking to people who know that's ridiculous. GH is GH. It's not like it's not like gear that can be underdosed or overdosed or whatever. It is what it is. So according to these people I've talked to, no, you never need to take way more GH on the assumption that it's not as potent as the pharma grade.
Right.
But is it GH? You don't know if it is GH. It could be, any one of these peptides. It could be anything, unless you get your IGF levels tested right after injecting stuff. But I hear what you're saying, man. But there's, that's an option that most guys don't have, is to get pharma grade gear. Like they wouldn't even know where to begin, and we're not certainly don't ask us. I don't even know personally, but that's a huge thing. But I want, if you would, I know that you weren't like a complete moron with your gear use over the years. You did do it in a certain way that, I'm not in fear that you're going to drop dead any day now. What are some things that you did as far as maybe taking time off or being reasonable with doses, things that if guys are going to be using this stuff anyway, and they are, what could you tell them as far as here's a little bit safer way to do it than what you were probably going to be doing?
Number one is if you're just starting out with someone and they're having you do massive doses, that's crazy. I was lucky enough to have people around me that were advising me that actually knew, understood, and cared about me. And we're like, oh, you're only going to need this. You only need that much, and it wasn't until later on that people, were like, oh, you should try this much. I'd like to see you doing this much. Imagine how big you'd be then. And then I finally hooked up with Aceto and
Freezing again. Frozen. So when you unfreeze, I'll tell you what the last thing you said was. Yeah. So last thing you said was, before it froze, was when I hooked up with Aceto.
Yeah, and he just said, no, this is crazy. This is all you need. Trust me. This is all anyone needs. And I'm thankful that I met Chris and got to experience and learn a lot from him. Another thing was that I waited. I didn't do it in my teens and my 20s, and it wasn't until I was 34 years old.
Wow.
And that I'd already built a really good base. I'd already built my knowledge of nutrition and training, and a very little amount went a long way. And I also, which I believe is huge, I didn't do this off-season thing where I gear up in the off-season and get huge. And I didn't do that. I never had an off-season. When people say, oh, what were your off-seasons like? They were off. I was off. I didn't do anything. So I would, rest, let my body recover, enjoy normal life, food. I would continue to train, but just by increasing calories, I would grow. And I didn't do off-season cycles. I didn't do that. I would take time off to let my body recover. And then at 16 weeks out, I would start my prep. And it was that simple. I think that makes a huge difference too. I really do. That instead of doing it year round for 10 years, I did it for half the year for 10 years.
Yeah.
And you know, do the math. That's half the amount a normal person does, or not a normal person, but someone who's looking to get huge.
Yeah. You know, I can vouch for this because I remember so many times, sorry, seeing you in the off season, you'd get chunky, you'd get pretty chunky, but then when you started your prep, and obviously now I know that's when you kick the PEDs back in. Good God, you changed so fast. You went from this little fat guy to I would start seeing like striations and separations within a week or two. Because I used to worry about it, like, oh no, Jose, he's too heavy, he's not going to get in shape, he's not going to have enough time. And after watching this a few times, I just learned to no, he's got it down, he's got his system down, he knows exactly how to handle this with his body and everything. So,
I think that would work for most people. I think as long as you have built a base and you continue to train in the off season and get enough nutrition in the off season. I mean, I was fat, but that's because I wasn't doing cardio and I was eating Ben and Jerry's and drinking beers, and but I didn't lose any muscle in the off season. If anything, I gained a little bit because I continued to train. So that 16 weeks was just spent strictly to get in shape and not lose any muscle. Okay. And it's very different than what you see most people. Well, you know, a lot of these guys aren't competing multiple times a year. They're waiting until the Olympia. So they have this massive off season and grow to be gigantic. 300 pounds, that's the number. Even if you're 5'7", you got to be 300 pounds. 5'6", 300 pounds. Yep. You know, in order to come back down to 260 on stage. And I never thought like that. You know, I let my weight go wherever it was going to go, but ultimately I had to be 202 or 212. So I didn't want to get too far away from that anyway.
I think I can speak for, because I have the opposite mentality. I always felt, okay, well, obviously I know I need a bunch of gear when I'm prepping for shows, but I also need it in the off season because I want to grow so I can be bigger for my next show, because I was never big enough. You know, I think most people have that. They come to it from that type of mentality, like, I'm not big enough. I'm not big enough. I'm never going to be big enough. So that's psychologically what leads most people to be on gear all the effing time. Because there's just no, you know, you had a good amount of size, you had to get down to a certain weight. And I think had you blasted gear year round, you would have grown out of those lighter weight classes pretty rapidly anyway. So it would have been a horrible idea for you in that aspect. But, you know, how do you convince these regular guys or the guys like me that come to it from that place of I'm not enough, of the insecurity? Like,
I think the mentality needs to change, as did yours. If you focused solely on condition and focusing on strengthening your weak points and didn't care how big you got, just focus on refining your physique in midsection, abs, you know, tight out from every angle, you would have been a better bodybuilder for it, rather than wasting time and energy on big. Because ultimately, how much bigger did you really get? I mean, you put on size over the course of 25 years, but how much really, but you could have nailed it a bit better on certain occasions. And I think a lot of these guys, they're not losing because they're way smaller. Some of them do, like a Patrick Moore, you know, the year he was totally conditioned crazy. The only reason he didn't place higher was because he was a little smaller. Now, if he just puts on a little bit of weight, he can get better. He'll move up in the ranking, but you have to bring that same condition. The reason the big guys are winning is because they're in condition. You know, Nick Walker placed the way he did because he was in great condition. Hadi Choopan's in great condition. You know, all these guys that are placing higher, yes, some of them are bigger, but ultimately they're in great condition. And that needs to be the focus of refinement, presentation, balance, and condition. You know, size should be in there. Of course, it's going to play a role. It's bodybuilding, but it's not the end all be all. And I don't think it's good to be walking around at 300 pounds over the course of 15 years. It's just not a good idea.
You do that and you're not going to be around another 15 years after that. I can promise you.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's the dog, big dogs and little dogs analogy. You know, we're trying to tell it's this drugs. Yeah, steroids. You know, because Palumbo did a response video. Steroids aren't killing people. Steroids do, but he said it's being so heavy. Well, obviously, you get so big and heavy from being on steroids that allows you to become so big and heavy. But
I think that was a slightly irresponsible response by Dave. And I like Dave. You know, Dave's a bright guy and he does good stuff.
yeah,
But I think he was just looking to put out content and disagree with Seth or whatever. But I do think clearly, steroids are playing a role in deaths.
yeah,
100%. It's not the only reason, but it's a combination of everything.
yeah.
And
You hit on a good point a couple minutes ago. You talk about me because I didn't get a whole lot bigger, but I was focused on overall size. And if I had focused instead on just making my physique better, like, okay, my arms are lagging behind. Why don't I just try to keep all this the same? My back could have been better. Work on the areas that need work instead of just becoming a bigger version of the same mediocre physique.
yeah,
Samson Dowda just talked about this in the interview with Giles. And I think that's a good I think that's why classic is a good thing for the sport, because it puts that weight cap on so guys can't just say, well, I'm going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because they can't do that or they'll grow out of they won't be able to make the weight limit. Instead, you know, if they're competitors and if they don't have the objectivity to be able to look at themselves, they can ask people who do, you know, the judges, someone like yourself. You could say, well, you're so good at telling people exactly what they could improve on. You know, you need more hamstrings, you need more this or that. And that's what they should be focused on instead of 10 more pounds, 20 more pounds, because that's just a recipe for disaster. That means they're going to eat like shit for a week after the contest. Then they're going to go back on a super heavy cycle, 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day, deadlift, squat, you know, do whatever they can just to get big, big, big. And they're not going to be a better physique. They're going to be a bigger version of the same physique that just got second or third call out in whatever show it was.
I have two examples that can prove what we're talking about. You know, one guy, say 5 years ago, we seen him in the lineup and he really stuck out. Beautiful physique, men's physique guy. And you were like, wow, that guy is awesome. If he just, you know, puts on a little bit, he's going to be something. And he didn't put on 25 pounds of muscle. He put on maybe 5 or 6. And now he's second at the Olympia in classic physique. Terrence Ruffin.
Terrence, yeah.
You know, he always had that awesome physique, and you're like, he just needs to refine it, bring this out a little bit, bring that up a little bit, you know, and he might have went from 167 to 171, you know, something like that. It wasn't this drastic jump.
Right.
And now he's second in the world, winning Arnold Classics and unbelievable. Another example that didn't go so well, because he did blow up like 40 pounds, was Keon. You know, he was refined and looked beautiful and was doing well and placing well. Then he jumped to 212 and was competing, you know, in my eyes, way too heavy. You know, he's probably 208, 209 after having competed at, you know, 175 or something.
Yeah.
And it did nothing for his career. It didn't make him better. He's just bigger. Once he focuses on just refinement, that physique is so nuts that he can win. He can push Clarita, Lunsford. He deserves to be in that conversation with those two guys.
Yeah.
But it's not because he needs to be bigger. All he has to do is refine, and he'll be with them, if not beating them.
Yeah. But, you know, bigger is better is basically like the mantra of bodybuilding. It's so hard to unwrap that, get away from that mentality, because that's from day one. Everyone picked up a weight was got to get big, got to get huge, got to make the gains. And now that we see, you know, people passing away way younger than they should, I hope people are really starting to rethink that whole way of looking at it. That it's not just, maybe we do need to go back to more aesthetics and not worrying about 300 pounds. This 300-pound number, God, it's you're right, man. No matter how short or tall you are, It's like, you better be, if you're not 300 pounds now, you ain't shit. It's like, you're
Right.
not even a bodybuilder. You're like a little twink. You know,
Right.
it's ridiculous.
I can't sit here and pretend like I have the answer. We don't have the answer.
Yeah.
But we have enough experience and we've seen enough to say that there's a safer way to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, dude. I don't know. I could drop dead tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, go get this done, go get that done. That's not as easy as you think. You spend hours on the phone trying to get your health insurance to okay this doctor to get this done, make an appointment. The next appointment you can get is June 15th,
Next year.
Yes. And then by the time you get that appointment, you have to get another referral to go here. It's not as easy as you think.
Yeah.
All right, go get blood work. Does your doctor, which doctor analyzes it? Who do they know exactly what they're looking at? I mean, it's crazy, dude, the amount of hoops I have to jump through just to get a certain appointment.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse, and you need to do the best you can to get it done.
Yeah. Well,
but I pay $630 a month out of pocket for my own health insurance, and I still get banged for this copay, this deductible, just to see these doctors, and then half of them aren't under my plan. You got to pay through the ass every month for health insurance, and then nothing's covered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that there are really cheap things that anybody can do, like a blood pressure cuff. I don't know, what do they run, like 30, 40 bucks? They can't be that expensive. Or you go to like a Walgreens or CVS, they always have one right by the pharmacy. You can check your blood pressure. I mean, that's the one thing everybody should be doing if they're on gear, is check your blood pressure, because high blood pressure jacks up your kidneys. Obviously, it's a early marker for heart disease. That's the one thing. Blood work, I was that asshole like a lot of other people. I never got blood work when I was on cycles ever, because I was afraid. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know what the hell was going on while I had all that shit running through my body. I would wait until the contest was over or whatever. 6 weeks later, that's when my annual physical was scheduled, and now I'm going to look at my blood work. But that's given it almost 2 months for whatever damage was done, the liver enzymes, all that, to get back closer to normal. Did you do blood work when you were on cycle and off cycle, or did you? Or
I did both. And to be quite honest with you, when I was at my peak of contest prep, my numbers were better than they are right now.
Really?
Yes. I've never had blood pressure issues. Never. I had just slightly elevated in liver enzymes.
You froze on me again. So liver enzymes were slightly elevated. Wait for it to unfreeze. Sorry, I all we heard was liver enzymes. What about like your HDL, the good cholesterol? Was that weight?
It was never an issue. It was never an issue. In when I did have things that were off, the doctor was like, well, this is slightly off, nothing to be concerned about. And it's to be expected, but it's not bad by any means. So I never had anything. It wasn't until like somewhat recently that I had things that were, nothing outrageous, but worth taking a look at.
How do you explain that? Doesn't even make sense. How do you explain that?
Probably because I don't do the vigorous cardio that I used to do.
Okay.
I used to do an hour on the step mill every morning, and I would run and do sprints on the step mill, and it was, it made up for a lot of the shit I was doing. It was at a point where I think I told you this. I got tested in my test levels. This is a Tuesday after the Arnold Classic. My test levels were like 300.
Wow.
They should have been 3,000.
Yeah.
My doctor said, you have the growth hormone level of a 90-year-old man.
What?
Yes, I had no growth in me, even though I was using it for the contest. And I had I was eating cream of rice every day, but I had I was like almost borderline anemic with iron. And supposedly the cream of rice like has extraordinary amounts of iron,
yeah.
especially the ones that I was taking.
Did you ever figure out why this is a crazy anomaly? Did you ever figure it out?
So what he was saying was I had no DHEA in me, and I needed to take DHEA to help transport whatever I was using. I'm using the terrible terminology here, but
Yeah.
One was internal hemorrhoids was causing the low iron.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's like, do you have a ulcer? I'm like, no. And he's like, then you have hemorrhoids. I'm like, oh, there you go.
Internal hemorrhoids.
Yeah,
That's a new one. I didn't think that. I think you're making that up. Is that a real thing?
No, it was, and then I end up inevitably having surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Like a year and a half ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So what are they like way up there? You can't see them or feel them?
Well, if you want to come check it out, you can. We'll give you a shot.
That's crazy. Wow.
No, but it's amazing that I was as healthy as could be during my entire career as far as all that stuff goes. And I'm healthy now, but you know, I don't do the cardio I used to. I just ride the bike now because my hips are pretty bad. And my numbers, you know, they're not bad, but they're not as good as they were.
Well,
Crazy.
We're seeing so many young guys on these heavy cycles like you referenced before. I mean, I see them all the time, even at my local gym. Guys, I can tell they're on so much shit just because their faces are like the color of liver and they're puffed out to here, gynos, zits, they're losing their hair at 25 years old. I mean, it's frightening. Do you think we're going to see, and these aren't competitors, most of them have no interest in ever competing or anything like that. Like they won't even train their back or their legs. They just want to have jacked arms for I don't know, for what, for the beach. So, you know, we're not going to reach these people because they're not going to get this message. They're not the ones that really need to hear it. Unfortunately, they're going to be doing all this damage probably between the ages of like 20 and 35. And they're not going to, until they start feeling some weird pains. So that's the thing is I think most people, especially men we don't like doctors for various reasons. We don't typically seek out medical treatment until something's already wrong, you know, because we're raised to be tough and you don't complain and you don't go to the doctor unless, you know, you have a broken arm or something. And, you know, like when I was a kid, we didn't go to the doctor unless you were on death's door. You were not going to the doctor at my house. So I don't know. How do we make the people that really need to take a look at their health and be aware of it? How do we make them do that? Can we?
Well, you would hope with the recent occurrences, people would. Yeah, you would hope that they would open their eyes and see what's going on around them. All we can do is continue doing what we're doing. Yeah. Speak to people. Try to educate people on being responsible. You know, be proactive when it comes to your health.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, you said it too. Is don't listen to these people who say, "I know what every pro takes." They're all on 5, 6, 7, 8 grams of gear, and that's what it takes to get big. And I know every single pro and every cycle of every pro. These people are so full of shit. It boggles my mind that anyone actually listens to them and believes them. You know, I have people saying, I've read these and I'm like, said, who the hell are you? I've never heard of you. And yet you say you know all the pros and they tell you their cycles. Who are you? Are you like,
they're liars? Yeah. It's the same people. The last video we did, a guy wrote in, well, I stood next to Cedric. He's barely 5'11".
Yes. Yeah.
That's like, dude, who gives a fuck? You know, he's 6 feet. He's 6'9" to me. I don't care. He's over 6 feet tall.
He definitely was.
Like, do you really care? It's those same people. They're just trolls looking to say something about something.
Yeah.
You know, Cedric was 6 feet tall, 6+.
At least.
He was over 6 foot. You know, I don't give a shit. That's a giant man. He was humongous. Yeah. Speaking of which, after we had done that video, I was thinking about it, and I had done a video on the Boston Mass YouTube channel on mine, back in 2017, and Cedric had come to my room to pose for Aceto. And I have it on my video. It's in the first minute of the 2017 Olympia. And so we filmed him posing and then me posing and him critiquing me. And he was funny as hell.
He always was.
He was like 288 pounds. And he's like, man, if I had glutes like that, I would shove those trunks right up my ass. He's like, don't be covering your ass. It was so funny.
He should have been a comedian. He really had the kind of had a way about him. But you know, I guess if I can offer one final thing, it's something when I consult, when guys come to me and they want to start steroids and they've already made up their mind, I'm not going to talk them out of it. I always tell them, start off with the lowest amount possible. Try to get the most from the least before you even think about going up, because I hate seeing these people start on a gram of test and 800 milligrams of tren and 3 or 4 anadrols a day. It's ridiculous. If you do that, you're never going to know how you would have responded, and you're already starting to do damage with that amount. Why not play it safe, ride out the gains from low doses for a while before you even think about starting to bump things up? If more people would do that, I think we'd have a lot less health issues.
Yeah, less is better. Focus on the nutrition and the training. Most people don't know how to train, swear to God. Yeah. I see people every day in the gym. I've been training tons of people, you know, tons of trainers that come to me. I want to get a workout with you. Okay. These people train people and don't know how to train.
I know.
You know, focus on that. Learn how to truly train your body, and you'll see crazy results better than if you don't train properly and take gear.
Yeah. I mean, we still come from that. We were right after that pumping iron generation. Well, not right after, but we were still of that era where drugs were the finishing touch, the icing on the cake. Because when we say that, we don't mean that they weren't important, that they weren't a big reason people looked the way they did in the 70s and the 80s and into the 90s. But there was not that obsession with drugs back then. Like when people come to me now, I know that they don't know anything about training. They know nothing about nutrition. They're completely ignorant about all that stuff, but they're like, what's a good cycle? Like, why would you want to even ask about drugs when you don't know what you're doing yet? That's like, I don't know. You don't know how to drive and you're asking like, how to like make some complicated addition to your rims or something. I don't know. It's getting, yeah, it's a terrible analogy, getting way, way ahead of yourself. So I agree with you. Learn the basics, and build it. Nobody wants to wait. And I get that. It's a fast-paced world we live in. It's instant gratification. But I really think if most people would just take at least a couple of years, stay clean for just at least 2-3 years, please. You build a base, you learn so much about your body. Then when you kick the stuff in, kaboom, the results are so much better because you already have all that other stuff handled instead of half-assing that while you're blasting all this gear. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Let me get down off it.
I also saw what's his name? Cali Muscles
Yes.
video. He's like, cancel bodybuilding. You can't do that. That's not what's going to happen. And that ain't going to solve it. And it won't happen. There's still people who are, crazy about the sport. I love bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I think, stay on top of your health, stay on top of your mental health. That's a big part of it. People who have severe addiction problems and body image problems, get the help you need, because it's not made for everyone. There are a lot of people who are addicted to steroids because they can't come off because they'll shrink. There's people who are like anorexic and end up getting into bodybuilding because it's a food control thing. Being bigger and more ripped is not going to replace the way you feel about yourself.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. That's probably the vast majority of bodybuilders. They come into it from something, they were abused or they were neglected or, something. Like for me, I was the shortest kid in class. I sucked at sports. For me, I went into it for, I won't say all the wrong reasons, but they weren't healthy reasons. It was out of, I want the guys to respect me. I want the girls to want to bang me. That's where I think most people get into it. So, and I do have a very highly addictive personality. I think Anyone who knows my family background, the family I grew up with could attest to that. But yeah, I mean, it's true what you say. Get help, because that's going to be the toughest challenge for most people to get healthy, is to get that attitude right, get away from that mentality. It's okay if I'm a little smaller. That doesn't define me. If I'm 220, I'll still be me. If I'm 210 or 190, I'm not gonna cease to exist. I'm not gonna lose my value as a human being, because that's tough. And I'm almost there. I'm at that point. I got to go to TRT soon, or else I'm really starting to get worried. Even though my health has been okay, luck doesn't hold out forever. At one point, everybody's luck runs out. Mine's going to run out sooner or later. So yeah, good questions, hard questions. Well, yeah, as usual, we raised a lot more questions than we were answered, but that's okay. We need discussions. We need people to talk, because that's how things get done, is people finally talking about things that they haven't been thinking about or talking about. So yeah.
I think it's simple, Ron. Don't abuse anything. Don't abuse your body. You just don't need all that shit. You just don't.
Yeah.
And really, how many percentage of people can be Nick Walker, Hadi Chupa, and Bonak, Rami? How many people?
I'd say it's about as many people as can be over 7 feet tall. So
Right.
how many is that? How many people walk around this world that are over 7 feet tall? Not too many, right?
Not that I know.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen a few in my whole life. So
Actually, less than 7 feet tall. There's probably a dozen, 25 guys in the NBA that are 7 foot.
Oh, really?
Or close to it.
Okay.
There's only one top 5 of the Olympia.
7 feet tall? What?
Hell yeah.
No, I thought you meant there was only one guy in the Olympia over 7 feet tall.
I'm just saying a top 5 Olympia bodybuilder is way more scarce than 7 foot tall men.
Oh, I agree. And unfortunately, just like there's no drug that's going to make you or I grow to be 7 feet tall, there's no drug that's going to make anybody out there have the physique of a big Rami or a, Hadi. You have to be born with those genetics, and then you add everything else, the training, the nutrition, the gear into that. Then you get these freakish specimens, but they're so rare.
Yeah.
Well, you were one of them. Yeah. How many people? Because people will look at your pictures when you're natural, and they never thought you were natural. They said there's no way anybody could look like that drug free. No way. And I said, well, let's see what happens if he ever goes on gear. Let's see what happens. If he blows up and doubles in size, we'll know he was natural. Well, sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Kaboom. Yeah. Kaboom.
I look at pictures of me at 175, and I already looked like I was 210.
Yeah.
It was very different than I knew that I was going to be big when that day came. Right.
Yeah, he had beautiful wavy hair. I remember. Good stuff.
Oh, I had kinky curly hair. It was crazy.
Good stuff. All right. Well,
funny, Ron.
We've rambled on. So I appreciate you taking the time, guys. Check out his Instagram. It's THEE Boston, Mass. The Boston, Mass. His YouTube channel is called The Boston, Mass. And how's the website doing? We want to give out the website?
No, not yet. I got to redo some stuff.
All right. And if you're in Boston, you don't want to find a gym, man. This is the one. Good Lord, the equipment is fantastic. They just
go online, mygymhub.com to book a workout. There's no memberships. Just book a workout if you're a trainer. Most importantly, if you're a trainer and you're looking for a place to train where they're not going to take 80% of your income, go to Gym Hub, sign up. You and your client can go in there and train, and you got the best equipment on the planet. I mean, he just added another flex leverage press, constantly looking to improve. And, that's what's great about Nate is he's never satisfied with anything. So he's going to constantly add more stuff in there. And, it's just great environment. Everything's great about it.
You might get to run into Jose Raymond too. You never know.
You very well may, especially if it's on the weekends. I'm there like once or twice a week, and then on the weekends I'm there.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you, Jose. Another great episode of No Way Jose. Please, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, turn notifications on your phone, do all that stuff. Like, comment, share, do all that stuff that we want you to do, please. We appreciate it. And we'll see you right here next time on No Way Jose. Look at that.
Look at that.